The Start Your Own Business podcast. Hear inspiring startup stories and get reliable expert advice on how to start your business and get off to the best possible start. Brought to you by Startup Donut, helping small businesses succeed.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. You're listening to the Start Your Own Business podcast. My name's Fiona Pryor and I'm your host. In this episode, I'll be speaking to Mike Harper, co-founder of CRIMPiT. Quick question for you. Who here doesn't love a toastie? We all love a toastie, don't we? It's the ultimate snack. I know I certainly do. CRIMPiT's original product is a simple but highly innovative way to create delicious toasties in a toaster without a toasting machine. How brilliant's that? CRIMPiT has gone on to produce other innovative solutions, including the CRIMPiT Wrap, which helps you make delicious, no-mess wraps. CRIMPiT was launched by Ian Critchlow and Mike Harper in late 2021. They started off selling CRIMPiT online, but things quickly picked up momentum on social media. Add in some celebrity fans and things have really taken off. 500,000 homes now own a CRIMPiT, and stockists include several high street stores. And the business is about to launch its products in the USA. So where did the idea for CRIMPiT come from? What key startup challenges have co-founders Mike and Ian had to overcome, and how have they been able to become so successful so quickly? Before we meet Mike, let's hear a little more about how the donuts can help you start and grow a successful business.
Want to be more successful when starting or running your own business? You need the donuts. No, not the little deep-fried dough balls filled with jam. I mean the 5 donut small business advice websites: startup, marketing, money, law and tech. Together they attract more than 1 million visitors each year, people just like you. Each donut website is packed with top tips and reliable information, which we hope will help you to be more successful when starting and running your own business. You can also access money-saving offers and time-saving tools while learning and gaining inspiration from other small business owners. Head over to www.startupdonut.co.uk and you can download a special startup guide that provides a checklist of key tasks you need to complete when starting your own business. Visit www.startupdonut.co.uk today. It could be one of the best business decisions you ever make.
So it's time to meet our expert, Mike Harper, co-founder of CRIMPiT. Hi there, Mike. Thanks for joining us. It's good to speak to you today.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
I wanted to start really about talking about the product for those who aren't familiar with CRIMPiT, and I wondered if you could explain what they are and what makes them so special.
Yeah, absolutely. So the key thing with our business is we've always wanted to launch innovative products. So we didn't want to launch anything you could find anywhere else. So we have 2 products on the market at the moment. So one of them is a CRIMPiT thin sealer. So it essentially allows you to make toasties out of thin bread, which you get in UK supermarkets. So they're small square pieces of 100-calorie bread. And you place it in the device, but you're filling in, place another piece of bread on top, crimp it together, put it in the toaster, and you've got a toastie in a couple of minutes at home. And then the other product that we have is a CRIMPiT wrap sealer. So it's for crimping tortillas or wraps. Again, it's sort of like a half moon shape. You open it out, place your wrap in, filling inside anything you want. So you can have anything from cheese and bean to fajitas to last night's leftover curry. Fold it over, crimp it together. It creates a little sealed parcel, a bit like a Cornish pasty in a way. And then you can heat it up any way you like. So most of our customers, I'd say about 85% for both products, are using air fryers these days. I think air fryers are taken off, haven't they? I think 1 in 2 households now in the UK have air fryers. It's crazy. So they're the products. Essentially, we've sort of created our own little niche for crimp snacks at home.
Yeah, and who doesn't love a toastie?
I know, you can't beat it. I think actually we've had comments on our Trustpilot from customers where they love the product because it means they can get kids to eat things they wouldn't normally eat, because obviously you can hide anything in a toastie. Absolutely. And make it taste good. So no, it's good.
It's a great idea. So I understand that there's a bit of a story behind the creation of the original toastie CRIMPiT, and that your son, Ian's son, was an early morning swimmer and you wanted some kind of snacks for him. So I wondered if you could explain that to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business partner, Ian's son, a competitive swimmer, and he was training 6 days a week. So they were doing training twice a day, so before and after college. Now, before college meant Ian was getting up at, I think they were going in at 4:30 to go swimming in the morning, and his son needed sort of healthy but also high energy snacks before he was swimming. So he loved a peanut butter and banana toastie, and that meant Ian was getting up half an hour early, so 4 o'clock to make a toastie and warm it up so that he could eat it on the way to swimming. So Ian thinks it's then normal to go away and invent a product to make his life easier, but that's just who Ian is, and that's the inventor mindset behind him. But yeah, that's how the initial product sort of came about.
The need for something quick and tasty on the move.
Quick and tasty on the move. You can heat really fast, yeah.
The mother of invention.
No, it's really good.
So from there, the business was launched in 2021. What were you doing before you launched CRIMPiT?
Yeah, so I had another business which I set up. So I had a marketing agency, and we were providing consultancy and also web developers and project managers into food and marketing, food and drinks businesses. So marketing background, I mean, me and Ian both have a similar background in terms of marketing. And it was actually, so Ian contacted me in 2021 to ask about developing an app, because that was something we offered in the agency. And that's where I asked him sort of, what have you been up to? Because I knew he was always playing around with ideas and testing new things. And that's where he mentioned the idea of this toastie maker. And it's sort of, I was like, have you got any more information about this, or have you got something I can have a look at? And he had actually created a little video just to do a quick demonstration of what the product does. And I showed it to my wife at home, and she was like, that's amazing. And then I was like, I sent it around, I think 3 or 4 friends, and they all came back saying, where do I buy one? And like, that was product validation to me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really need much more. So I called him back about 2 hours later and said, Ian, let's do this. So I think we had the company registered that afternoon, and yeah, we sort of kicked it all off.
Blimey, so it's flown from there.
Yes, yeah.
So back then, that was still, I presume, in like the times of COVID. So did that make things more difficult?
Yeah, I mean, COVID's an interesting one. When you look at like the e-commerce industry, I think everyone obviously saw a massive growth online. I wish we'd actually launched a bit earlier in COVID, if anything, because I think the market scaled massively. But in terms of COVID and how it affected us, the biggest impact we had was around deliveries. So because we self-funded the business, we got the product initially made out in China just because it was lower cost and we could test the market. That meant getting deliveries sent overseas, which was challenging, obviously, with COVID. But I mean, COVID led to a war, which meant planes flying the opposite way around the country. So there was a whole host of things that provided a challenge. But in terms of generating sales and revenue online, COVID didn't really impact us.
Right, okay. So you've talked about your background in market research. What other market research did you do before launching the product?
Yeah, so the only other thing we did before we launched the first product was we spoke to Warburton's, because they're quite big in the sort of thin bread market in terms of supply in supermarkets. And we got the figures from them in terms of how many packets they sold per week. They were quite open with that data. And that gave us the sort of confidence that the market's big enough, along with the feedback from friends and colleagues, that it was worth trialing.
So did you do any kind of things like product testing and things like that with potential end users?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously it started slightly before I got involved. So Ian spent the first sort of 6 to 9 months product testing. The big thing in our products is the teeth. So the teeth change based on the product and the thickness of the bread, whether you're crimping wraps, whether you're crimping thin bread, and so there was a lot of product development, product testing, and then we tested it on friends and family, but outside of that, we didn't do anything with the general public at that point.
Okay, so you've talked before about how the product is unique, and that was a really, being innovative was a really sort of key to, what you wanted to do with the business. I wonder what you've done in terms of protecting your intellectual property, because we all know that whenever something new comes out that's great, there's always someone who tries to kind of piggyback or hang on to your coattails and sort of come up with, copycats. So what have you done in terms of protecting your innovative ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. This is very topical right now. So we actually we took a lot of advice legally when we started out, just to what we could do in terms of protection. And I think we've pretty much covered ourselves as far as we can. So both products are patent pending. We have registered designs, although they're called design patents over in the US. And we have trademarks. So we're covered for all three of those across UK, Europe, Australia, America. So it's like we sort of focused on picking our core markets and went for the protection over there. But we actually do have copies, or China have tried to copy the product, but they've copied it very poorly. And we're now grateful for the IP protection that we've got, because it means that we can then go onto sites and marketplaces and get them taken down. But yeah, it is one of those, isn't it? It's like if you create a success, then someone's going to try and copy and take a piece of that market. The downside, obviously, is when someone copies it and it's not as good, then because they're using our images and our videos to sell their product, it then people think they're buying from us. Yeah. So it's not only damaging to revenue, it's also damaging to reputation. So I would say it's absolutely critical to get the protection, and get the protection obviously early doors, because most of this IP protection is only viable if it's done before the product enters the market. Yeah. So it is an investment, but it's absolutely an investment worth doing.
Yeah. So did you get sort of help with getting your IP and patent protection in place?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky. So my dad's a lawyer, so we went through his law firm, and obviously talked to specialists within the firm. It's something, trademarks you can probably do yourself, following guidance online. But when you start looking at registered designs and patents, like you absolutely need the experts there.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of it, you've mentioned that you found sort of copycats online. How do you go about enforcing that? Do you use someone to do that for you? How do you monitor for fakes?
Yeah, so on a small, if it's a small scale problem, then you can obviously do it yourself, and you just need your certificates of your trademarks or IP, and you can just upload them and get them taken down. If the problem gets slightly worse, then there are companies out there. We're using a company called Redpoints, which are really good. They use a mixture of AI and software to essentially find copycats online, and then it automatically reports them and uploads the relevant documentation based on what type of issue it is, or what type of counterfeit it is.
Yeah. So talking about, with something new, I suppose, brand new kind of design, did you go through much of a prototyping process?
Yeah, so as I said, with the first product, Ian spent 6 to 9 months going through various prototypes. So we did it slightly differently with both products. So with the first product, it was done very much more on a budget, because it was early days. Ian bought a 3D printer at home, and then we used a person on Fiverr to create the initial CADs, and then we were essentially printing out various versions and testing. With the second product, because we were further along in the business journey, we actually engaged a product development agency, which meant we could turn the product around a lot faster and get a lot more testing done and higher quality prototypes and prints and things. So it's definitely a learning phase. I mean, with our product, the hardest part to manufacture in terms of plastic manufacturing is around the teeth, just because the thickness of the teeth is so much. And it's amazing to go around the factories and have a look at them getting made. But the plastic has to go to such high temperatures and then get molded and then get reduced, obviously, back down to cold. And doing that on a thick surface area is really tricky. So one thing you'll learn if you ever go into dealing with manufacturers is it's not an easy process, and you will always have delays. So factor that into your planning.
So there's a couple of points there, I suppose, is that In terms of prototyping, yes, you can do it yourself. So that's a key lesson, I suppose, for someone who's starting out, who's also thinking about launching a brand new unique product, is that yes, it is possible to do that prototyping yourself. But that also, you can go through professional companies and get people to do that for you as well. So yes, there's 2 lessons there. In terms of the manufacturer, how did you go about finding your manufacturers? What help did you get with that process? Because I imagine that's when you're coming up with something that's completely new, that's quite difficult to find someone who can do the job that you need them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, the first manufacturer that we had over in China, that was an introduction from the CAD designer off Fiverr. So again, it sort of just flowed and just happened. When we hit all of the issues with COVID, Chinese New Year, we brought manufacturing back to the UK. Now, we got lucky in the UK that we had an introduction to a manufacturer through another colleague. So that's sort of how the Stockport manufacturer came about. In terms of overseas, so we're actually recently launched over in the US, and we have a manufacturer over there in Louisiana. And being completely honest, we found them on a Google search. We did a Google search. Ian did the Google search because it's more sort of his area of expertise. And this company had a load of YouTube videos explaining the process, walking around the factory, and we just liked what we saw, so flew over and spoke to them, and yeah, that's how it all came back.
So many ways of finding them, I suppose. Networking. Absolutely. And a bit of research online.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you talked about the expense involved in some of the processes, the design, the testing. How was the business funded?
Yeah, so it was we're completely bootstrapped. So myself and Ian put the investment in at the start, and it was a chunk of investment, i.e. it was a lot of our savings. So we sort of put a lot on the line in terms of this business. But I mean, as an entrepreneur, that's what you do. You believe in something. It doesn't matter if family and friends think you're crazy. You sort of go ahead and you take that leap. And if you really believe in it, then I say go for it. But yeah, it's all funded from savings.
And talking about bootstrapping, have you got any particular tips about how, startups can keep their costs down?
Yeah, I think so. I've had a service business in the past and also a product business. Now, service business, it's a lot easier because if you're starting a marketing agency, you just need a laptop and you can pick up the phone and you can start your marketing agency. With a product-based business, it's obviously slightly different because you need to make the product that you can sell. So both sides, I would always say be frugal, like keep the cost down. Any way you can, get a minimum viable product out there. So it doesn't have to be the perfect finished item. It just needs to be something that works and can deliver value for your customers. Test it. And then as you start making sales and you can reinvest profits, that's where you sort of do maybe the finishing touches or expand the product in one way or another.
Yeah. So I think if anyone sort of went online and put in CRIMPiT, you've got a fantastic kind of online presence. You've got a great website. I've come across thousands of videos of people using your product and sharing their recipes, loads of people sharing their food photos, and that makes a real impact. How important has it been to the success of the business to have that kind of online presence?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a background in digital marketing, so online presence I see is absolutely critical. I think there's different levels. So the first product we launched, we were a single product business for the first 18 months, and our website was a drag and drop website builder, £99 a month type website. Yeah. So it wasn't anything expensive. It wasn't anything sort of flashy. It did the job and it got our message across. At the end of the day, if you've got a good product that provides value and you've got good messaging, then customers will buy from you. So that's got us through the first 18 months, and then we moved over onto a bigger platform. So we're now on Shopify. But in terms of online presence, I mean, there's so many different angles to this. I think what people see when they search for your product online is really important. So if someone types in CRIMPIT in Google, what appears at that point? So are they seeing retailers? Are they seeing ads for your product? Are they seeing reviews? Are they seeing influencer content? Are they seeing YouTube videos? Now, we were quite lucky because CRIMPIT was an unknown term before we started the brand. And if you went to Google and search for CRIMPIT, there was nothing there, which meant, there is also a plumbing tool which has got a similar name, but it wasn't very competitive in terms of us pretty much taking over the whole of Google. So I would actually say that is really important when you are looking to start, is spend a lot of time on GoDaddy searching for domain names and seeing if they're free, and then type them into Google and see what appears. And you'll be able to tell just looking at it how competitive it will be for you to get into that number one spot, or if not number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you can get other things ranking such as YouTube videos. So online presence is critical. The more people you can get creating content for you, the more videos that will appear, the more images that will appear, and it's a snowball effect, isn't it? If people need to see you 6 or 7 times before they buy, I think the average is. So I think as long as you're hitting every platform, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, your own website, Google, you need to be all over the place, essentially.
Yeah, and you've got some celebrity fans on your side as well, which must help.
Yeah, absolutely. The early days, it was crazy. Like Mrs. Hinch was like our dream influencer to get within the first 5 years, and she actually bought the initial product, the CRIMPIT Thin Sealer, about 4 months into us starting, and that was the time we were manufacturing in China, and we had 0 product in the UK. And it was the middle of Chinese New Year, and Mrs. Hinch posted with 5 million followers. And we went from 200 orders on average at that point to 20,000 orders that day. It was crazy. Like, the website went down in 6 seconds, and our web developer was saying it's like the worst hack he's ever had to deal with, but they all want to spend money with you. And it was crazy. Yeah, so the website broke, fulfillment broke, everything broke. But it was a good learning curve, and it was another driver to bring manufacturing to the UK. But again, we got more product validation at that point because we had no stock and we had this huge spike in sales. We then changed our shipping to delivery within 30 days, and people were still buying it, which is crazy when you live in the times of Amazon next day delivery. For customers to be buying a product when it's on 30-day delivery, that was like a big tick in the box sort of thing.
Absolutely, the ultimate nod of approval. We're happy to wait. We want it that much.
Yeah, which was really good. It was exciting.
You really only hear that with kind of designer handbags that cost hundreds of thousands of pounds.
That or toastie makers.
Yeah, go on a waiting list.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So it kind of sounds like it's been some really exciting times then. Despite all the challenges, it sounds like it's been a kind of exciting journey.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting journey. It's one of those as an entrepreneur, I think you definitely don't, I definitely don't step aside and sort of think back to what we've achieved and where we've got to. I think I'm always of the mindset of what's on today's list, get that done, whatever's not done on tomorrow's list. And it's always about sort of the next step and the next thing, and how do we keep all these plates spinning? But yeah, no, it's been really exciting.
But how did it make you feel, particularly when you've got the kind of backing from someone like Mrs. Hinch in terms of those early stages and that kind of early signs that you had something potentially big on your hands? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, I think you get a great buzz, obviously. When we did our first few thousand sales before Christmas and we sold those products over 2 or 3 days, that was like an incredible feeling because it sort of validated that your product was right, the market was there. The feeling very quickly turned into how are we going to get 2,000 products out the door into the post office? So it turned into stress and hard work very quick. But no, it's definitely a good feeling.
Oh, brilliant. So not only do you sell online, you're also sort of stocked by a number of, big high street stores. How did you achieve that? And what advice would you give to anyone else who wanted to get a product on the shelf of, say, a supermarket or a high street store?
Yeah, so this is it's actually very interesting. So I was actually chatting to another high street retailer this morning, but there isn't one strategy, I would say. And I'm a very firm believer in building a brand and building D2C, so direct consumer first, and then sort of looking at retail as like a secondary angle. And the reason for that is if you look at cookware or people that would buy kitchen gadgets in the top 10 retailers across the UK, there's probably 30 people. So if I took the angle of going straight to retail before doing any online marketing, I have 30 people that I need to try and get in touch with that can then make the decision on whether the business takes off or not. Whereas we went down the angle of direct to consumer, and we probably had 50,000 customers before we even spoke to a retailer. So then we get all the analytics, the data, plus the confidence, and we can then say to the retailer that we have 50,000 customers over the last 3 months, and straight away that sort of clicks in the retailer's mind that this product is a winning product. So we were very lucky initially. Our first retailer was Lakeland, and they contacted us 3 months in after we launched the business. I couldn't quite believe it, that it happened. But again, there's so many stories, but like we went into those conversations so naive, like had no understanding of retail at all. And we were very honest about that. We said we've never done retail before. So, and it was a big learning experience, and they were great and really helped us. And now the product is in every window of a Lakeland store across the UK, next to the air fryers, because it's a good companion for air fryers. So that's sort of how Lakeland came about. Oliver Bonus again approached us, got in touch with our support email, and then Robert Dias, they also came to us. The buyer there had a CRIMPit at home and loved it.
When you've got that many customers buying them themselves, eventually you're going to get someone who's in one of the big firms who owns it. It's like, have you seen this? It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, that's how we got in there. And then I've wanted to go into a big four grocer for years, and the amount of messages I've sent and had nothing back. And I guess that's one of the entrepreneurial traits, isn't it? You just don't give up and keep going. But I'd actually say networking and speaking to other business owners is really key, because you can get introductions that are so valuable, especially from business owners that are already doing it and are already dealing with the big four grocers. Then that can open doors, and that has opened doors for ourselves. And then the conversation that I had this morning came off the back of some personal PR that I've been doing. We had a piece in the Metro a couple of weeks ago, which turned into a conversation with another retailer. So it's not one approach. You've got to be doing everything. So getting messages out on social, build your profile on LinkedIn, talk to other business owners, and you just got to keep going. But if you build a brand and you build a big customer base, you will get picked up by retail eventually.
Yeah, it's about being dogged in your determination, and like you say, use all the channels that you've got available to you. And networking, I think that's a common kind of message that comes out from these episodes, is that actually that can be a really valuable tool in your toolbox, is other people's contacts and knowledge.
Absolutely. And it's great to talk to other business owners, because they're probably facing similar challenges, and they probably have similar ambition and desire that you have. So generally a lot of my good friends are business owners that I've met on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking of, you've got all the success on one side. Are there any kind of mistakes that you made in the early days that things that you would do differently now? Or have you got any particular lessons that you can share with listeners in terms of, these are the things we wish we hadn't done, or that we'd done differently, or, done further down the line?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I would have done differently is built a team quicker. So I was quite cautious in the fact that I wanted to build the business and try and get the business stable before we employed people, because it never really sat well with me that I'd be employing people to take a risk in the business like myself. I'd rather have I'd rather be comfortable that I knew that the business was here to stay and was scaling, and that we could do that. But I think employing people faster, and I think in terms of who to employ, I'd always look at that skill set that you lack or isn't your strong point.
Yeah.
So mine's always been around finance. So like bringing in a finance director has been game changing for us. It's meant you don't have to think about that or stress about it. And they can obviously explain things to you in ways that you understand and make it a lot easier. But yeah, I think building a team around you quicker. But there is obviously a cost to that, and there is also a risk to that. So I think in the early days, it's just get your hands dirty and do everything and spin those plates and get out and learn what you can online and just have a go. And when you get to the point of you can afford to bring people in, then obviously you need to do it in a certain order. But I'd pick on the skill sets that you don't have.
Yeah. I think there's a real risk that you tend to be drawn to people who are like you, and so you can end up with a team that are all kind of saying yes to the same things, and sometimes what you need are those who will question your thinking, or like you say, bring in skills that you don't necessarily have, or viewpoints that you don't necessarily have, because they can uncover opportunities that perhaps you hadn't thought of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting people that think differently to you. I mean, bringing an FD in was interesting because before it was you made a decision and it happened, and now it's you've actually got to give a reason as to why you're doing something, and you get challenged a little bit, and that challenge is good because it makes you think about it carefully.
Yeah, you have to justify the decisions. I think we need to do this, and I've costed it up. This is what's going to cost us. This is where I think the potential growth is, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's definitely helped.
I wanted to ask you about something that's a slight sort of side to the business, really. In that there's some recipe books out with CRIMPiT, and I thought that's quite an interesting kind of thing, because there's all that social out there that we've talked about earlier with people sharing their recipes. That's a great idea to sort of bring them all together. Whose idea was that?
Yeah, so the recipe ideas, we've got a huge community online. So after people buy the product, we then link them through to a private Facebook community. So we've got 110,000 customers in there now, all sharing recipes. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but our second product also came from that community. So the benefit of having a community like that of brand fans is we can go to that community and we can do a poll and we get information back very quickly. So the second product actually came from that community. Everyone was saying, can you make one for wraps? Can you make one for wraps? Can you make one for wraps? And you don't have to hear that too many times before you go, actually, there's a product here and there's demand for it. But the same thing with the recipe book. People are asking for recipe books. So that's one of the huge benefits we have from that community is we can see what customers would like. We know what they want as the next products, and we can use it to help in our marketing. So we did a poll on there last night, which was asking, when do you eat CRIMPiT's the most? Breakfast, lunch, dinner? And the reason why we're asking that is we want to understand if it's heavily weighted towards a certain time of day, because we can then put that into our marketing messages through our TV adverts, for example. So it's a really good resource. It's like instant customer feedback.
Yeah. And do you have someone managing that for you? How does that work?
So we used to manage it ourselves in-house, but we actually now have community managers, which are customers themselves. And there's a group of customers that are highly engaged on the platform, and they're hugely valuable to us.
You're super fans.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we send out new products to them and they do announcements, and they're really helpful.
It's fantastic. So big question, do you have a favourite recipe?
So I've got a 10-month-old daughter, and my wife, while she was pregnant, her favourite thing was a Greg's sausage, bean and cheese pasty from so we had a lot of those over 9 months, and that trend has actually carried on, but we now make them with CRIMPiT's at home, but they're a firm family favourite, which is good.
Fantastic. So sort of wrapping up really, what kind of 3 tips would you give to someone who is thinking of starting their own business?
Yeah, so I think the first one is start lean. So like we were saying before, I think there's a misconception that because of programs like Dragon's Den, you need to have a huge investment to start a business, and that's simply not true. Like, my first business was started with a laptop, and that was it. Like, you don't need a huge amount of money. Obviously, if you're doing a product-led business, you do need to invest some at the start, but there are ways around that. Like, you can, we mentioned about waiting lists before, like that is a valid tactic. Like, you can launch a video explaining the product that you're going to launch, and you can get people to put orders down up front, and that's a way of generating the revenue to then go and create the product.
Yeah.
Or there's platforms like Kickstarter. There's all sorts of ways around it, but I'd say start lean. So you can start a business without a lot of capital. I think networking's a big one. I know we've talked about that. I think people think of networking as going to an event and standing awkwardly in a hotel lobby, trying to go over and get someone's attention. I think there are different ways of doing it now. And if you are nervous, then there are communities and groups online. I think finding communities and groups in areas that you need to increase your skill set. So, say Facebook advertising is critical to our business. It's how we generate the majority of our customers. So there are groups online that specialize in that area, with thousands of business owners, and you can contact them through Slack and do a video call within minutes. And I think there's a different style of networking, but I think it opens so many opportunities that I think it's critical. And then probably the other one, I think people feel like you need to leave your job and sort of take a dive into starting your own business and dropping everything to do that. And I just don't think that's true. I think you've got mornings, evenings, and weekends.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should do it on someone else's time, but I think you should have the stability of having an income covering your bills and not add unnecessary stress to starting a business.
Yeah.
And you'll know when the time feels right to leave work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think dropping everything and adding that stress to it is very helpful.
So dip your toes, maybe in the form of some side hustle first, just to make sure it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Mike. That's been really interesting chat. I'm sure all of our listeners will be going out now and buying their own CRIMPiT and sending their own recipes into the Facebook groups, sharing their ideas. Before you go, though, can you just tell people where they can find you and CRIMPiT online?
Yeah, so crimpit.co.uk if you want to find the products. If you want to get in touch with myself, always happy to help. Just search Mike Harper, CRIMPiT on LinkedIn, and you'll find me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. That's brilliant.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Wow, what an interesting story. I've really enjoyed my chat with Mike, and I hope that you did too. Hopefully Mike's shared some really handy hints and tips that will help and inspire you, particularly around things like networking and prototyping, and the importance of building your online community and how they can help you improve your business. If you're enjoying the Start Your Own Business podcast, please spread the word so we can help even more business owners. You can find links to Mike and his CRIMPiT products in the summary notes. And we've also pulled together some handy resources from across the donuts that can help you on your startup journey. You'll find these at www.startyourownbusinesspodcast.co.uk. Finally, another really big thanks to Mike for his time and insights. I'm off to make myself a CRIMPiT toastie. Until next time, all the best.